And we're live.
Good evening. Welcome to our Municipal Council agenda for Tuesday, May 17th, 2022. I'd like to call this meeting to order at this time and ask if there's any declarations of interest at this time. Seeing none, I will move along to our land acknowledgement. The town of East Gwillimbury recognizes and acknowledges the lands originally used and occupied by the First Peoples of the Williams Treaty First Nation and other Indigenous peoples. And on behalf of Council, I thank them for sharing this land. We also acknowledge the Chippewas of Georgina Island First Nation as East Gwillimbury's closest First Nation community and recognize the unique relationship the Chippewas have with the lands and the waters of these territories. They are the water protectors and environmental stewards of these lands, and we join them in this responsibility. Item D, I have some community announcements. First off, from May 15th to the 21st, we recognize National Public Works Week. The theme for 2022 is Ready and Resilient. Public Works professionals ensure our town runs smoothly and safely with well-maintained roads, reliable transit, state-of-the-art water treatment and recycling facilities, first response, and forest conservation. Thank you to our East Gwillimbury Public Works team. You're amazing. This weekend, with members of council, I attended the official opening of our new operations center. What an incredible event. More than 2,000 people were in attendance to share in the celebrations. A big thank you to Mount Albert Lions for taking on the barbecue and serving over 1,000 guests in 3 hours. And our thanks to everyone who attended and to our staff, partners, and volunteers for organizing and delivering this wonderful event, which was enjoyed by many. And this Thursday, we are celebrating the official opening of our East Gwillimbury Farmers Market here at the Civic Center. The official opening and ribbon cutting will be this Thursday, May 19th at 2 p.m. As council liaison to the Farmers Market Committee, I want to thank the chair and members who met throughout the winter months and have put together a great selection of vendors, events, and activities throughout the season. Please plan to visit often and support our local vendors. Are there any members of council that have announcements at this time? Councillor Persichini, go ahead, please.
Thank you, Madam Mayor. I just wanted to say that we have 2 weeks left for my Easter Seal Run Walkathon. I just want to say that it's a special thing we're doing. It's a 100-year anniversary for Easter Seals and 46 years for Joe Persichini. Has raised over $3 million with the good people of this area. No pressure for anyone. Your money or your feet. You get registered. It's a special deal. $250 will get 10 people. You register, so we're doing a special thing because it's a 100-year anniversary. So we hope to see everyone there on Sunday, May 29 in Newmarket, and I look forward again. Thank you so much for all the years of helping us out, and it's all about people, and it's about the Easter Seal kids, so thank you to the bottom of my heart. So I hope to see some of the people. Please do not feel pressure. Every little dollar counts. Thank you.
Thanks to you, Councillor Persichini. And the location where people should be arriving to?
The Riverwalk Common at 8 o'clock. You can get registered, and we should take place about 9:30.
Wonderful.
And for the celebration, I hope to see you and maybe some of the council members just to cheer us on. Thank you again to everyone. You guys are great.
Thank you, Joe. Wonderful. With that, do we have any other announcements from members of council? I'm not seeing any. I'll move to deputations. We have none on the agenda at this time. Item F is presentations. We have none at this time. I'm going to move to item G, and that's the adoption of the minutes. And I will move for the adoption of the minutes from the meeting held on May the 3rd. Be it resolved that council adopt the council minutes from the meeting held on May 3rd, 2022. Could I have a mover and a seconder, please? Councillor Roy D. Clemente, Councillor Persichini, all those in favor, and that's carried. Item H is our statutory public meeting, and it is a zoning bylaw amendment for 18818 and 18948 Woodbine Avenue, ZBA 2201. The portion of this council meeting is a statutory public meeting under the Planning Act. The purpose of this public meeting is to inform the public and to obtain public input on planning applications received by the town prior to a full technical analysis being conducted by our staff. No decision to approve or refuse an application will be made here tonight. There will be presentations from both town planning staff and the applicants on the development applications. Following these presentations, members of the public will be invited to offer their comments or concerns respecting the proposals. Note that submissions can also be made in writing. I will then ask either staff or the applicant to answer questions related to the applications. Once we have heard from the members of the public, members of council will be invited to ask questions and/or provide comments. Your participation tonight is welcome. Hearing all comments enables the making of informed decisions. It should be noted that a comprehensive report will be prepared by staff assessing the merits of the application before us and providing council with a recommendation on whether the proposal should be approved, modified, or refused. This report, once prepared, will be presented at a future council meeting. It is very important that the town receive the names and addresses of individuals having an interest in the planning applications. Therefore, if you plan to speak to council at this meeting, or if you wish to be notified of any future council meetings concerning the application being considered, you must provide your contact information to the clerk. Under the Planning Act, the applicant or residents have a right to appeal any decision of council on a planning application to the Ontario Land Tribunal. However, you must first verbally express any comments or concerns here tonight, or submit any comments or concerns in writing to the town before the bylaw is passed. The tribunal may dismiss all or part of an appeal made in respect of an application. This public meeting is being audio and video recorded for storing and broadcasting on the internet. Your name, address, comments, and any other personal information is being collected and maintained for the purpose of sending correspondence related to matters before council and creating a record that is available to the public in hard copy format and on the internet in electronic format pursuant to Section 27 of the Municipal Freedom of Information and Protection of Privacy Act. Questions about the collection of personal information should be directed to the town clerk. I will now call on the Chief Administrative Officer, Mr. Webster.
Thank you, Madam Mayor. This evening we have a very large-scale, exciting proposal for us on our opening up our Highway 404 employment corridor. The Woodbine 1 development is moving along in a planned and managed manner. We've established an internal project management team to assist in this endeavor, and tonight they are going to be presenting another important step in the move forward to this development. So I will pass it now to Deputy Valchich, who will introduce our planning team.
Thank you, Mr. Webster, and Madam Mayor, through you. At this point, I would ask Lawrence Cook, our interim director of planning, to make some introductory comments and start the staff portion of the presentation.
Thank you, Mark. I'm just going to pass it off to our senior planner, Victoria Moore, to provide the planning background to this planning application. Victoria?
Thanks, Lawrence. Good evening, Madam Mayor, members of council, and any residents we have joining us tonight. I'm Victoria Moore, Senior Planner at the town, and I'm here to provide a brief presentation on the zoning bylaw amendment application for 18818 and 18948 Woodbine Avenue, which I will refer to as the Woodbine 1 Phase 2 ZBA throughout this presentation. Next slide, please. The subject Phase 2 lands are located on Albert Road, 404 and Woodbine. The combined property is 300 hectares fronted along Woodbine Avenue. This is any building
We are having audio issues here for a moment. Can we just see if we can get this sorted out, please?
I don't think it's on my.
I'm just going to remind everybody to mute the microphone if you're not speaking.
It sounds better now. Can you hear me now?
Yes, your sound is coming out clear.
Okay. Sorry. So the subject Phase 2 lands are located south of Mount Albert Road, east of Highway 404 on the west side of Woodbine Avenue. The combined property area is approximately 100 hectares with frontage along Woodbine Avenue and Mount Albert Road. The site is currently vacant of any buildings or structures, and earthworks are underway in accordance with the council approval from September 2021. Next slide, please. The applicant owns 3 properties known as 18574 and 18818 and 18948 Woodbine Avenue, and proposes to develop the lands comprehensively to construct a state-of-the-art advanced logistics and distribution center. The subject zoning bylaw amendment will permit the stormwater management facility and pumping station to service the development, and will also establish the permitted uses approved for the Phase 1 lands on the Phase 2 lands as well. The proposed development will generate approximately 1,000 jobs and will be the town's largest employment use to date. Next slide, please. The zoning bylaw amendment for Phase 1, which was approved by Council in February 2022, includes the southern portion of the development where the Advanced Logistics and Distribution Center is to be located. Phase 1 also includes ancillary uses and associated vehicle and truck parking. The subject zoning bylaw amendment for Phase 2 includes the northernmost portion of the landholding where the stormwater management pond and pumping station are proposed to be located. The Phase 2 ZBA also includes the lands south of a proposed storm pond and pumping station and immediately north of the Phase 1 lands. The plans for this parcel are not yet determined and currently show a conceptual building. Any proposal for this land will be subject to a future site plan application. Next slide, please. The subject lands are within the Highway 404 Employment Corridor Secondary Plan area and are designated primarily prestige employment. A small portion of the lands are designated mixed business employment and environmental protection area. Next slide, please. The prestige employment designation is intended to provide prestige employment uses that require good access and high visibility along major transit routes. Some examples of permitted uses outlined in the secondary plan include offices, research and development, and light industrial uses such as manufacturing, processing, warehousing, and distribution. Lands within this land use designation are intended to be designed in accordance with the Highway 404 Employment Corridor Urban Design Guidelines and shall be designed with high-profile buildings that utilize strong architectural design, building finishes, and landscaping. Next slide, please. The Phase 2 lands are currently zoned rural. The rural zone permits a range of agricultural and agricultural-related uses. With the Highway 404 Employment Corridor Secondary Plan now in place, the site-specific zoning amendments are required to rezone the land to facilitate the development of employment uses within the secondary plan area. Next slide, please. The applicant is proposing to rezone the lands to employment prestige zoning with a site-specific exception zone. The exception zoning would permit the following additional land uses: the stormwater management pond, pumping station, cold storage distribution, distribution center, truck refueling station, and truck repair garage. Next slide, please. The applicant also proposes some site-specific zone provisions, which are the same as those that were approved for Phase 1. The site-specific zone provisions include establishing parking requirements of 1 space per 185 square meters of net floor area, inclusion of truck and trailer parking in the required parking calculations, excluding accessible parking, which shall be calculated on car spaces only, permitting loading spaces in the front yard, permitting ancillary uses as standalone uses, and establishing a minimum landscape area of 5%. Next slide, please. The submitted zoning bylaw amendment application has been circulated and is currently under review by internal departments and external agencies. The The following matters have been identified and will be addressed in a future recommendation report. Consistency and conformity with provincial, regional, and local planning policies, the appropriateness and compatibility of the proposed development, review for any other zoning deficiencies, analysis of traffic implications throughout the site, evaluation of environmental boundaries on the site, and commemoration of the heritage building that was removed to facilitate the Phase 1 proposal. Next slide, please. Planning staff have received some initial public comments related to the Phase 2 ZBA. The comments and concerns generally relate to the potential financial implications on the town, employment forecasts and tax revenue, environmental and traffic impacts, and requests for confirmation on the end user, as well as a request for further information on the types of goods and services to be stored and distributed at the facility. Next slide, please. Staff will continue to undertake a technical review of the application, including discussions from today's public planning meeting. A comprehensive report with recommendations for the ZBA will be presented at a future council meeting, and staff will also continue to review the submitted site plan application and bring forward a recommendation report for council's consideration once all technical requirements have been met. Next slide. So that concludes the staff presentation for tonight. I'm happy to answer any questions.
Thank you very much. Are there questions of staff? I'm not seeing any at this time. The next item that we have is comments or a presentation from the applicant or the applicant's agent.
Thank you, Victoria. Good evening, Mayor Hackson, members of council and staff. My name is Arthi Thaya, and I'm the development manager at Rice Commercial Group on behalf of the property owners of 18818 and 18948 Woodbine Avenue, Green Lane Northeast GP Limited. I would like to start off by conveying my thanks to staff and council for the review of our application and the scheduling of tonight's public meeting. I look forward to being the liaison for staff as we move through the processing of this application. As you know, Rice Group is based in York Region and is a recognized developer of commercial properties in the Greater Toronto Area. We are committed to developing high-quality retail and commercial developments with the simple philosophy, we develop properties where people work. We see great opportunities in bringing employment lands to the market, and our objective in all cases is to continue to own the properties after they are developed. As such, we become proud members of the communities we invest in and take on an active role in its continued growth. Next slide, please. This evening, I'm joined by Michael Larkin, President at Larkin Plus Planning, our planners on the file, Shelley Lonis, Senior Ecologist at GI Consultants, our environmental consultants on the file, Matthew Fisher, Infrastructure Planning Engineer from GM Blue Plan for our external servicing design, and Scott Cole, Vice President, National Practice Leader for Civil Design from GI Consultants, and members of our senior management staff, who are all online and available to answer any technical questions that may arise. John McGovern and Michael Rice extend their sincerest regards as they're unable to join tonight due to scheduling conflicts. Next slide, please. Our site in East Gwillimbury is located south of Mount Albert Road and between Highway 404 and Woodbine Avenue, consisting of approximately 60 hectares in area. The lands will be developed in phases, as illustrated on the conceptual site plan on the screen. By phasing the proposed development, we were able to bring the phase 1 of the site online that will generate employment growth and economic development in East Gwillimbury with a confirmed consumers needs tenant while continuing enhanced consultations with planning staff, council, the public, and external agencies to support phase 2. Next slide, please. Through this zoning bylaw amendment, we're looking to transform these phase 2 lands from rural to employment general to permit 784,000 square feet of industrial facilities and associated office space. These phase 2 lands will also include a stormwater management block, a sanitary pumping station, and a constructed wetland. The subject property is located within an employment area in the town's OP. The proposed advanced logistics and distribution center is considered an employment use and will support the employment area by providing an additional 500 jobs within the Phase 2 lands for a total of 1,500 new highly skilled, skilled, and unskilled jobs. Next slide, please. Based on the proposed site layout, current market requirements for buildings, and topo of our site, a proposed retaining wall will be required along Woodbine Avenue. We are continuing to have discussions with the town and landscaping consultants in regards to utilizing urban design elements, such as a tiered wall system, a variety of trees and plants, and modern light elements to develop the streetscape across Woodbine Avenue. Next slide, please. An extension of the town's wastewater system is required to service the subject lands within the Highway 404 Employment Corridor secondary plan area. The town approved the civil servicing plan, identified the need for a sewage pumping station to service the subject lands with sewage flows from the secondary plan area to be conveyed to the York Region Sharon Trunk Sewer. A Schedule B Class EA has been undertaken to evaluate alternative solutions to support the immediate wastewater servicing needs of the subject lands while providing the flexibility for future upgrades to service additional growth within the secondary plan area. The Class EA process for the wastewater servicing solution is being integrated with the Planning Act through the zoning bylaw amendment process. The preferred solution will be determined based on evaluation of natural, social, economic, and environmental factors, and incorporate input from key stakeholders and the public. The preferred solution will build on the servicing framework identified in the town's waste and water master plan and the approved secondary plan civil servicing plan, and will include an on-site sewage pumping station and twin force mains along Mount Albert Road that will outlet to the extension of the existing gravity sewer system and ultimately outlet to the Sharon Creek trunk sewer. Next slide, please. Tonight's public meeting also satisfies the public consultation requirement for the Schedule B Municipal Class Environmental Assessment process for the associated sanitary pumping station and force main required to facilitate the proposed extension to the town's wastewater system. After the public meeting, comments from the public and stakeholders will be incorporated into the evaluation, and a project file report for the Schedule B Class EA will be completed and made available for review by the public. The project file report will detail the evaluation of alternatives and the selection of the preferred alternative. A notice of the study completion will also be distributed to provide opportunity for public review of the project file report study and its recommendations. The detailed design of the sewage pumping station and associated force main will be reviewed and approved by the town and the region. We will be constructing the sewage pumping station and force main, and ultimately the sewage pumping station and force main will be transferred to the town, with works to commence in early 2023. The proposed water main to service the development is to remain as identified in the Highway 404 Employment Corridor Secondary Plan. The proposed water main project is a municipal class environmental assessment Schedule A+ project and will require a commencement of construction notice. Next slide, please. We have been working diligently with the town of East Gwillimbury, Region of York, and the Conservation Authority to appropriately plan our proposed development to ensure we're maximizing benefits to the communities that we are members of through job creation, sustainable practices, and positive ecological offsetting. As per the staff report, it is anticipated that the proposed zoning bylaw amendment will permit uses that will generate the town's largest employment use, millions of dollars in development charge revenues, multi-millions in regional development charges, and hundreds of thousands annually in property taxes to the town overall. Our proposed development will attract and support business development and job creation in East Gwillimbury. The building will be constructed using high-quality materials, appropriate lighting, landscaping, and sustainable design elements that will ensure the facility is built in a respectful manner with resident and business quality of life protected, while simultaneously promoting conservation and enhancement of the natural environment in East Gwillimbury. Our proposed development initiates the infrastructure investment in the town of East Gwillimbury 404 Employment Secondary Plan for development and represents overall good land use planning through its compliance with upper tier policies. Next slide, please. I will now ask Shelley Lonis, our ecologist on the file, to present the results of our ongoing consultations with the Lake Simcoe Regional Conservation Authority and provide some more details on our constructed wetland.
Thank you, Arthi, and thank you, Mayor and Council, for having us here today. Through you, the consultation with Lake Simcoe Region Conservation Authority began at the very inception of the project. So we engaged with them right from the beginning. And at the time of the phase one lands, sorry, my slides here are a little bit different. The first approval received from the LSRCA was in December of 2021, related to earthworks associated with the phase one lands. At that time, a holding provision was applied to some of the environmental features located on these lands in order to allow time for appropriate consultation with the town staff and LSRCA to achieve a net benefit to the ecological systems in both the phase one and phase two lands. During that time, our team also engaged with the Ministry of Natural Resources and Forestry to gain permits to allow for the removal and relocation of any wildlife and fish that may have been located in the ponds associated with the areas in the holding provision in the phase one lands. Since that time, in late April, LSRCA did provide written notice to the town of East Gwillimbury indicating that they had no further objections or concerns with the removal of the holding provision for the environmental features located in the phase one lands. And since that time, our team has also been working diligently with LSRCA in order to identify opportunities for a net ecological gain in the northern portion of these lands in the phase two area, where we may create some wetlands associated with the stormwater management pond in order to obtain better habitat overall for the entire property. So certain natural heritage features that do exist in the phase one lands are going to be relocated in the form of the reconstructed wetland that Arthi did allude to earlier. Next slide, please. This constructed wetland, it will allow us to replicate some of the features that do exist in the portion of the man-made pond located in the phase one lands. The new wetland will allow for wetland plants and wildlife to have sufficient habitat for survival. And overall, it does provide a net gain to the ecological functions and resiliency of the system on the property. The wetland will consist of not only a submerged aquatic wetland community, but will also have some permanent standing water, which allows for a better persistence of species of frogs and fish to exist in overwintering conditions. There will also be surrounding meadow marsh, shallow marsh, and thicket swamp communities associated with the wetland, which provides a greater diversity of habitats for the long term. There will be some shallow slopes allowing for turtle nesting beaches. There will be vegetation for fish to provide food sources, and there will be some pollinator habitat associated with these communities as well. It is our intent that over time, these created features will naturalize with the system and provide a better opportunity for wildlife to persist in the long term. And Arthi, is it going back to you here, or am I passing it on to anyone else? I don't think there's any more slides for this section.
That would be
Yes.
all, Shelley. Thank you.
Perfect. Thank you so much.
Thank you very much. We are at item 4 with public comments now. I would ask speakers to give names, give their name and their address at this time.
Through you, Madam Mayor, we do have one individual who has registered to speak at tonight's meeting. That would be Denise Tennant.
Good evening, everybody.
Welcome. Good to have you with us tonight.
I think actually Shelley answered a lot of my questions. I had just been reviewing the January meeting and looking at what she had presented there. And my one question is, I know that has anything changed since that January meeting with regards to the amount of increase in the constructed wetlands? Like, I know that that we're still going ahead with, but has any change occurred to the constructed wetlands? And I also wanted to find out, like you said, that you relocated the wildlife, so the wildlife will naturally come back. Is that how it works, or because I know there was turtles there, right? And I know that that Councillor Crone had expressed concern about the turtles, and I just wanted to know if that there's going to be turtles there because you have a slope for them, but I don't know if they would come back. once that's
If it's
occurred.
okay through you, Mayor and Council, I'm happy to answer those questions for Denise.
Please go ahead.
Thank you. Yes, Denise. So we have made substantial changes to the design of the wetland, and we are still working through some of those detailed design aspects with the LSRCA. So we are working hand in hand with staff there to make sure that we're meeting the needs of the ecological features that are present, as well as providing that net gain. So there are some features that have been added to the design since the time it was initially presented, including some of the pollinator habitat I mentioned. We have increased a little bit of the size of the wetland, so it does provide a gain, and there are going to be a substantial amount of trees planted in association with some of the more upland areas of that zoning. As for the turtles, we have actually gone through and begun our turtle trapping efforts in order to try and relocate anything that might be in the pond. At the time of our studies, we weren't entirely certain whether there were turtles present in the pond or not. So we made those assumptions just on a precautionary basis in order to make sure that none were going to be injured during its decommissioning. However, since that time, we have trapped in the pond. However, there's no turtles present. So
There's no turtles. Okay.
yeah, there's
No
no
turtles.
turtles. So we're not necessarily concerned about turtles getting back into the new pond. However, if they do make their way there, there will be habitat available. And of course, our targets will be amphibians because there are frogs in the vicinity that will eventually migrate into the new features.
Okay.
Does that help?
And yes, it does help. Thank you. And I also wanted to just express that I think it's great that the town is building that and factoring that in, because I think in the January meeting you had said that that the existing stormwater or area that there was, existing wetlands were actually not that great. So you've actually improved on that, and I think that's wonderful. I just wondered why, and maybe I should maybe send an email, but I know that we're looking at the zoning now, but all of the the construction and the moving of dirt and land and all of that stuff is already happening. So I think I'll just address that with Victoria separately. But in terms of just traffic and things like that, I think that I just need to review the traffic studies and such. But I was more concerned just about the wetlands. So thank you very much, Shelley.
Thank you very much. Are there any other individuals that would like to make comments at this time?
Through you, Madam Mayor, there are no additional registered speaker for tonight's meeting, and there's nobody in audience for tonight.
Thank you. Then we will move along. We have looked after item 2, 3, and 4, and the resolution following is, be it resolved that Development Services Planning Branch Report P 2022-13 dated May 17th, 2022, entitled Zoning Bylaw Amendment Application Green Lane Northeast GP Limited, 18818 and 18948 Woodbine Avenue be received, and that the presentation, written and verbal comments made during the statutory public meeting regarding the zoning bylaw amendment for 18818 and 18948 Woodbine Avenue, file ZBA 2201, be received, and that comments presented at the statutory public meeting be addressed by Development Services Planning Branch in a comprehensive report to Council at a future date. Are there any questions on that resolution? Councillor Roy DiClemente, go ahead, please.
Thank you, Madam Mayor. I believe in your opening remarks you said that there would be an opportunity for council members to ask questions, and I did have one, if that's okay.
Please, go ahead.
Thank you. Just through you, Madam Mayor, perhaps to Ms. Thea or to staff, the presentation mentioned a retaining wall. I'm just wondering, at this point, I know it's still under discussion with staff, but at this point, how high and how long is that retaining wall?
Mr. Webster, do we have a staff individual that would be aware of the details?
Madam Mayor, General Manager Molinari is off tonight on a medical matter. However, Paul Newman, our Director of Engineering, who's very engaged with this project, could provide a little bit of insight into the screening that's been proposed. Is Paul with us tonight?
Thank you, Mr. CEO. What I can suggest is the screening along Woodbine Avenue. We're still working with the proponent to determine what that will ultimately look like. There is going to be retaining wall, and we are working with them through CPRC, their landscape architect, and ourselves to try and introduce a less obtrusive sort of wall. We're trying to introduce some trees and some planting beds along that to help break up that wall. I hope that answers your question.
Thank you. Is it in phase 1 or just in phase 2 at this point?
I believe most of it is within phase 1.
Thank you, Madam Mayor.
Thank you. Are there any other questions at this time from members of council? Councillor Crothers, go ahead, please.
Thank you. As we change the zoning from rural to employment, I just see the EPA seems to have dropped off. Are we still going to keep that area to the north as a EPA area? How does that work with the change in zoning?
Which staff member would like to handle this question?
Madam Mayor, I would suggest it might be a combination of the development proponents consultant, Shelley, and as well staff, and as to who might have the more expertise in this. Maybe we could refer it to the Woodbine 1 folks to answer that question with some more specifics, and then if there's any follow-up, staff could address it as well.
Thank you.
Go ahead.
Tom, if it's okay, through Madam Mayor, it's Arthi, I can go ahead and answer this question. So we are working with the town on this matter.
To share the stormwater.
So we are working through, sorry, we got cut off there. We are working through with the town and the LSRCA to redefine that zoning bylaw schedule to include an EP1 zone. So that is something that we'll probably take into consideration and make into revision prior to this zoning bylaw being represented to council for approval. I hope that answers your question.
So the whole thing won't be M1. When this comes back, we're going to see an EP1 in there as well. Is that correct?
That is absolutely correct.
Thank you.
Thank you.
No further questions.
Any other questions, comments at this time from members of council? I'm not seeing any at this time. I have a resolution before us. Be it resolved that Development Services Planning Branch Report P 2022-13 dated May 17th, 2022, entitled Zoning Bylaw Amendment Application, Green Lane Northeast GP Limited, 18818 and 18948 Woodbine Avenue be received, and that the presentation, written and verbal comments made during the statutory public meeting regarding the zoning bylaw amendment for 18818 and 18948 Woodbine Avenue file ZBA 2201 be received, and that comments presented at the statutory public meeting be addressed by Development Services Planning Branch in a comprehensive report to council at a future meeting date. Could I have a mover and a seconder, please? Councillor Crone, Councillor Morton, all those in favor? And that's carried. Thank you. We'll move along in our agenda. At this point, we're at administration. Mr. Webster, I believe, are you going to take this one, or Mr. Velchik?
Madam Mayor, I'll start off. And firstly, thanks to you and council for attending and overseeing the opening of the Operations Center this weekend. It was a wonderful event and a great day. Just want to remind folks that next week on May 26th, we're having a community open house at the Civic Center, and there's going to be a lot of great things happening and opportunity to comment on some of our very high-profile projects, including our official plan update, the Woodbine 1 development, and the downtown revitalizations of both Holland Landing and Mount Albert, which are on this agenda tonight. So a lot of exciting things to get the public involved in. And we do have a COVID update. One thing I'd like to just start off with is we've been leaders. We have other municipalities, even in York Region, looking out to us right now for guidance. And we're going to be making some video and technological updates to the council chamber for the June cycle to provide a better quality of video and capabilities. And as well, we've had a phased manner, and we've been doing our best to firstly get our elected officials directly accountable to the public back into the council chamber. And the next step is staff will be joining council in June, and we will be opening the chambers to the public fully. And so a lot of good news. And this is obviously based upon positive COVID cycles and announcements, and we're hoping to keep track with the statistics. We are working continually with our partners, so a lot of good stuff happening. I'll pass it over to our deputy, Mark Valchich, who's been overseeing with Chief McKenzie our COVID recovery, for any other updates that he would like to provide this evening.
Thank you, Mr. Webster, and Madam Mayor, good evening to you and members of council. I'll just perhaps reiterate a couple of points that Mr. Webster indicated. Our focus initially was to successfully support members of council in accordance with the provincial regulations relaxing and opening up our facilities to successfully reintegrate the ability to meet in the council chambers. And I think we've been very successful with that to date. We've had what we would call sort of a soft launch of that. We haven't actively been advertising, for public attendance in person at those meetings. However, we have had a couple of members of the public that have come in, and the facility has certainly been open and accessible. However, our messaging is going to be updated as we proceed into June to highlight the fact that the meetings are now sort of being promoted as hybrid opportunities. So meaning individuals can be present in the council chamber if they wish to view the proceedings, or can do that remotely and virtually if that's more accessible for them. So want to make sure this is really consistent with what we referred to as our Build Back Better plan, which means taking sort of the best of what we were doing prior to COVID and the things that we learned and the best practices we learned during COVID and combining them. And as Mr. Webster said, now that we've sort of successfully sort of introduced the hybrid meetings back into the chamber, our IT staff have been working very closely with our clerk staff around using our technology and refining it to improve the broadcasting ability a little bit and the viewer experience to better profile council members and ensure that people are a little better sort of seen when they're speaking and that sort of thing. So you're going to see some improvements. In fact, I would expect that as early as tomorrow, members of council may expect a communique from Mr. McNeil just outlining some changes to requirements and protocols. It's going to be very simple to follow, so we're not expecting anything significant, but I think you're going to really like the improvement in the broadcasting quality. And I believe that's all I have to say at this point, Madam Mayor. Happy to answer any questions if there are any.
Thank you very much, Mr. Valchik. Are there any questions at this time? Councillor Carruthers, go ahead, please.
Thank you. Two questions. Wonderful that we're improving the user experience. I just want to make sure that we keep in mind residents who have bandwidth issues, that whatever we're doing is presented in a format that's easy for people to view from home when they're struggling with internet connectivity. The second question I had is there's still some confusion with residents about our bag limits for garbage pickup. And I mentioned this during this report because we had increased the bag limit because of COVID. And now that we seem to be coming out of it, I'm just wondering if we're going back to the 2 bags or staying at 5, and if we can make sure that that's communicated to the residents.
Madam Mayor, I could assist in that one, and thank you, Councillor Crothers. It is spring cleaning time as well, and we know when COVID first hit us 2.5 years ago, a lot of garages and basements were spent hours. People were spending hours on them, and we did talk about this morning. Again, in Mike Molinari's absence, Paul Newman does have some answers. I think we've been applying a very soft approach to our 2+2 bag limit. And maybe for a period of time, if council so directs, we could be a little more deliberate in indicating during the spring season at least that we're increasing it to a certain amount. I'll pass it over to our director, Mr. Newman, to answer some of the questions and points that you've raised there.
Thank you.
Thank you, Tom. You are correct. About a year ago, we did revert our 5-bag limit that we introduced during COVID and reverted it back to the 2-bag limit. That was about a year ago. GFL, our waste collector, we've advised them on a sort of unofficial process that anyone that puts out up to 5 bags of garbage, that they'll continue to pick it up. So the process has been officially there's a 2-bag limit, but we have been picking up the 5 bags. I spoke with GFL this morning, and there is a very, very small uptick in people that are putting more than 2 bags out. So in their opinion, it's 2 bags is fine at this time.
Thank you. Our website still says 5 bags, so we need to update the website. And I would highly suggest we do a communication to let people know that as of certain date, it will be the 2-bag limit again. And that way people can get their cleanup done and we can go back to enforcing that 2-bag limit. Again, my question is around the confusion. So I think we need to make sure that our website is consistent with our policy and that's communicated. Thank you.
Thank you. Are there any other questions at this time for staff? Seeing none, I have a resolution, be it resolved that administrative verbal update dated May 17th, 2022 regarding COVID-19 recovery update be received. Could I have a mover and a seconder, please? Councillor Morton, Councillor Foster, all those in favor, and that's carried. Thank you very much. We'll move along to item J on our agenda, and that is community infrastructure and environmental services. And I understand Director of Engineering Paul Newman is going to present tonight.
Thank you, Madam Mayor. I'm very excited to announce this project again in council, this much awaited project in downtown Mount Albert. Our manager of asset management and capital projects, Denny Boskowski, will be introducing this slideshow and presentation, as well as our consultant that's overseeing the project.
Good evening, Madam Mayor, members of council, staff, and the viewing public. I'm Denny Boskowski. I'm the Asset Management and Capital Projects Manager, and I'm very happy to present our public consultation, engagement, and communication strategy to you. Tonight's proceedings represent a first step forward to making some of our visionary concepts and recommendations developed through the 2014 Mount Albert Downtown Revitalization Strategy and Community Improvement Plan a reality. Next slide, please. We've assembled a robust and talented team to undertake the project. The town's steering committee has representation from all departments, including CIES, Economic Development, Corporate Communications, CPRC, Finance, Planning, and Legal. FEMA is the principal project consultant leading the primary engagement and design for the project. Paul Turner and Jillian Thompson from FEMA are in attendance tonight and will be speaking further to those project elements. At this time, I'd like to invite Margot Beijing to speak to the economic development component of the project.
Thank you, Denny, and through you, Madam Mayor, members of council, and any of you members of the public who are viewing this evening. I'd just like to speak a little bit about the economic development focus. As you are aware, revitalization is primarily the ability to have economic vitality and sustainability. And we achieve that through a variety of means that include things like streetscaping and some of the structural improvements, but we're also focusing on the business needs and what residents are looking for in terms of services and amenities to make a more complete and robust downtown. To that end, we are working with the consultants from MDB Insight. Right now, a commercial and retail gap analysis is underway. They have had an opportunity to begin some feedback and meet with some of the businesses in Mount Albert specifically. They will also be part of the creating surveys that will go out to the community to gather more input about preferences and needs and opportunities that will inform some of our investment attraction efforts going forward. And I'd just like to note that as part of this process, it's going to give us good information about what the community is looking for as a whole, beyond just Mount Albert. It will inform the Holland Landing revitalization project that you're going to hear about later this evening, and will in fact inform our efforts going forward. Occasionally we hear from investors and prospective developers who are looking to understand what are the opportunities, what is EG looking for, and this will give us some really good data about what the market will support and what will make sense in terms of meeting our community's needs, and which businesses will not only support what people are looking for, but have the best chance of surviving and thriving and doing well in our community. So I just wanted to talk a little bit about that aspect. We certainly understand that as this goes forward, there'll be a lot of engagement with the public about what the downtown area looks like. But business continuity through any construction is an important consideration, as is building the capacity of the existing businesses to not only take advantage of the changes and improvements that are happening, but to continue to grow and expand, and ultimately to attract more patrons to their establishment and contribute to the economic sustainability of the community as a whole. I'm happy to address any questions that members of council may have. I'll be here through the duration of the presentation, but at this time I'd like to turn it over to the consultant, Mr. Paul Turner, to talk a little bit more in a little bit more detail about the project itself. So thank you.
Thank you.
Great. Thank you, Denny and Margot, as well as Madam Mayor, Council, and all in attendance. As Denny noted, my name is Paul Turner, and I am the project manager with SEMA Plus, overseeing both the public consultation and the design and tender of this exciting downtown revitalization project. Our brief agenda is as follows: project overview, project schedule, engagement and consultation strategy, preliminary design considerations, and a discussion Q&A. Next slide, please. The community of Mount Albert is a historic and rural service center and village. Mount Albert has grown since its establishment in 1821 into a small village as part of East Gwillimbury. The town continues to grow, and the new existing residents seeking a variety of services right in their own community. Over the years, the town, in partnership with local businesses and business groups, associations, have sought new opportunities to invest in local business development in the downtown core of the community. As a result, there is a vision to restore the downtown core. It is anticipated that Mount Albert will experience a 33% increase in residential population and a 100% increase in employment population over the next 20 years. You'll note that there are two colored borders on the key plan map of Mount Albert. The green boundary encompasses the entire project limits that we're looking at, while the red identifies the detailed design limits for what will eventually be reconstructed in the near term. While we won't be advancing a detailed design within the green limits outside of the red limits, it is important to understand how they will tie into the red limits, which includes identifying potential constraints and provides a vision or a roadmap for the preliminary design to eventually progress in the future. Next slide, please. The planning for the revitalization of Mount Albert has been in the works for a number of years. The 2014 Mount Albert Downtown Revitalization Strategy and Community Improvement Plan built on the previous Business Retention and Expansion Study from 2006 and First Impression Community Exchange Program from 2011, with the intent to articulate a vision for downtown Mount Albert and establish a strategy for revitalization and economic development. These initial plans were very comprehensive, and we intend to build upon the solid foundation that has already been laid. Downtown Mount Albert has a number of attributes that can and should be used to create an outstanding regional and local destination. Making a place that is diverse, well-connected, aesthetically pleasing, and authentic are crucial in retaining and attracting new visitors to the downtown. A well-planned and designed community in downtown core will benefit existing residents and businesses. It is recognized that there are new opportunities, but also constraints in the study area as we plan with further revitalization. Therefore, it is important to set priorities which will assist in the decision-making process as the study progresses. The Mount Albert Downtown Revitalization Project intends to improve the economic, physical, and social well-being of the local community by focusing on the vision and the priorities listed here. Next slide, please. We are excited that the Mount Albert revitalization has officially kicked off in early 2022. The overall project schedule spans from 2022 to 2026, from start of project award of the current design study to construction completion of the detailed design, or the red limits that you saw earlier. The slide focuses on the key activities in 2022 and 2023. The preliminary and detailed design will be carried out over the next 2 years. A total of 4 rounds of public or stakeholder engagement is planned to coincide with the respective major design milestones. Currently, the project team is planning for a series of project launch activities, including notification of study commencement, upcoming pop-up events, and our first public open house. Additional information is provided on some subsequent slides. Another aspect of coordination is with the economic development team, as Margot mentioned. In parallel with the Mount Albert revitalization study, the economic development team is also carrying out a study to better understand commercial retail opportunities in Mount Albert. The design team and the economic development team will work closely together in identifying expectations from local businesses and how selected elements can be integrated in the design and help enhance the downtown experience, especially elements related to public realm. The coordination between the design team and the economic development team will include, for example, joint notice of project initiation and community open house and an online survey as part of the project launch activities. As the studies progress, there will be sharing of information and opportunities for joint meetings with relevant stakeholders where applicable. While 2022 will focus on obtaining valuable business insights and ramping up the design, in 2023, the planning for utility relocation activities will begin, and advanced utility relocation construction is expected to start in late 2023. Next slide, please. Looking ahead in 2024 to 2026, it is expected that the detailed design will be completed by somewhere in between the first and second quarter of 2024, which will also coincide with the completion of the advanced utility relocations. This will be followed closely by the tendering of the road reconstruction contract of the detailed design limits. Construction is expected to start in the third quarter of 2024 and wrap up towards the end of 2025. The official ribbon cutting ceremony is slated to occur either late 2025 or early 2026. Next slide, please. A number of pre-engineering activities have already begun. Residents have received notification of the anticipated pre-engineering investigations in mid-March. Activities include topographic survey, subsurface utility engineering investigation, geotechnical investigation, and eventually CCTV sewer inspection. The topographic survey is now essentially complete. The subsurface utility and geotechnical field commenced in late April and finished just recently in early May. The CCTV sewer inspection will be carried out at a later date, if required, to supplement the existing information. In order to support economic development, a commercial and retail gap analysis has been commissioned and is currently underway. Next slide, please.
Thank you, Paul, as well as Madam Mayor, Council, and all in attendance. My name is Gillian Thompson, and I'm the Engagement Coordinator with SEMA Plus. working with Paul Turner and town staff in this project. This project is at the heart of the community, and we expect a high level of interest from local residents, business owners, and stakeholder groups. The input gathered from these audiences will shape the processes, assumptions, recommendations, strategies, and outputs throughout the project. And we've developed a comprehensive engagement and consultation plan that will serve as the foundation for relationship management and engagement design over the course of the project. Our approach is based on the principles developed and adopted by the International Association of Public Participation, IAP2, which acknowledges that objectives should be clear and tied to the desired outcomes for each stage of the project. Audiences should be defined, and tactics should be unique and tailored, recognizing different audiences may participate at different levels along the engagement spectrum of inform, involve, consult, collaborate, and empower. Our engagement and consultation plan is based on a set of core values that are shared by the town and the project team. And the plan itself is comprised of three main components: a stakeholder management piece, where we seek to understand our audiences, their level of interest or contribution, and preferences for engagement and communication. The engagement strategy itself sets out the elements of the program, including milestones, tools, and tactics, defining the when and how of engaging each audience. And the strategy is flexible and can be adjusted to respond to emerging interests. Lastly, the communication protocol outlines both internal and external communications, processes, and procedures. Next slide, please. As reflected in the overall schedule that Paul just reviewed, we have identified 4 rounds of engagement, each with its own objectives. Very broadly, round 1, we're consulting on and validating the 2014 downtown revitalization strategy. In round 2, we'll be consulting, involving, and collaborating around the development of the 30% design stage, and similarly in round 3, around the 60% design milestone. And in round 4, we'll be informing audiences of that final design package. Each round represents an aggregate of many tools and tactics to inform, consult, involve, and collaborate. And some efforts may be combined, and some efforts may be distinct to a particular group. Some of the tactics are considered high impact at critical points in the project, such as the community events and the open houses. Other tactics maintain project momentum, such as the project webpage, which we see as being the information hub for the project, where information documents will reside and where audiences can find or can provide feedback, rather, either through open concept comments or curated online surveys like our project launch survey. Within each round, we're going to detail the engagement activities, including a calendar of events and tailored communication materials. And in each round, we'll build on what's been done previously, learning along the way what works well, what we can improve upon, and how we can reflect the feedback received in how we are moving forward. Next slide, please. As you've heard, we're just launching round 1 of engagement, and there's a number of activities planned to introduce the project. A formal notice of project initiation and open house, fresh project information, and project launch survey will all be posted on the existing project webpage on May 20th at the end of this week. Over the next week, we'll be distributing notices to town residents, business owners, property owners, and stakeholder groups. Our team will be attending the Civic Center Open House on May 26th and Sports Day on June 4th. And these events bring our team into the community where we can create awareness and generate interest and excitement about the project, and where we can encourage people to participate in the online survey and attend the open house. The open house itself is planned for the evening of June 15th at the Mount Albert Community Center and will be a drop-in style event. We'll have display materials that are a mix of informative content, inspirational images, interactive activities, all of which will help us work through with attendees community priorities, preferences, and aspirations for the project. Our team is very much looking forward to meeting with and talking with community members and stakeholders through these round 1 engagement events. Next slide, please.
All right, thank you, Gilly. Here are a series of images intended to kickstart your imaginations and inspire a discussion of what downtown Mount Albert could be. The intent is to understand your reaction to each image. What are the elements that you are drawn to? What do you think is attractive, practical, and aspirational? We tried to focus on images of a more narrow roadway corridor for inspiration. These include one-way shared streets as well as more open streets, fully integrating vehicular traffic with cyclist and pedestrian traffic, where the roadway and the boulevards blend together. We also looked for images that reflected a range of hardscape materials, interesting landscape opportunities, and placemaking to create a signature look. As you'll see on the next slide, the Center Street right-of-way is considerably narrower than most downtowns. However, this provides opportunity to take advantage of this quaint and unique feeling. Recognizing the constrained road right-of-way and the fact that there was limited guidance in the 2014 revitalization strategy, the project team has developed a few conceptual options on how this 12-meter right-of-way may be utilized. Option A, which is similar to the existing conditions, includes one traveled lane in each direction with on-street parking on the east side and a 1.5-meter sidewalk on both sides of the road. However, with this option, there would be no dedicated facility for cyclists, and there would be no opportunities for a wider boulevard where additional landscape features may be provided. Option B includes one traveled lane in each direction. However, it would be a significantly wider lane where cyclists may be accommodated as a shared facility. Similarly, a 1.5-meter sidewalk would be provided on each side of the road. However, similar to option A, there would be no room for on-street parking, and there would be no opportunities for a widened boulevard where additional landscape features may be provided. Option C includes one traveled lane in each direction with a 1.5-meter sidewalk on both sides of the road. There is additional boulevard space provided for landscaping opportunities. However, there would be no dedicated facility for cyclists, and there would be no on-street parking. As you can recognize, these are some pretty different approaches here. These are right now, these are just high-level conceptual cross-sections, which illustrates that there will be trade-offs between elements selected within the narrow road right-of-way, and we will be keenly interested in obtaining public feedback on what is important to the residents and businesses of Mount Albert. Next slide, please. Along the study corridor, there are a number of considerations that will contribute to early public consultation and design considerations. In general, the key design considerations are the narrow road right-of-way, which I spoke earlier of, the need for parking, whether it be on street or elsewhere in the near vicinity, higher speeds of traffic as a result of some of the steeper slope grades of the roads that come in and out of Mount Albert, provision for active transportation facilities, and accessibility or AODA compliance. These images represent some of the higher profile opportunities. Active transportation considerations connecting the community to its amenities while balancing the limited space within the road right-of-way. Parking, whether it be on street or side street or public lots. Accessibility, in particular on Elizabeth Street with it being quite narrow, particularly adjacent to the retaining wall, and on Bank Street as a result of the hydro poles within the sidewalk. Utility conflicts, again, as noted above, with not only within the sidewalk, but potentially along Center Street interfering with on-street parking. There will also be considerations for potentially burying the aerial hydro. However, this is typically quite expensive and time-consuming versus a more traditional replacing of the existing wooden poles with a more decorative colored concrete pole that can be paired with a decorative arm and light fixture. And finally, minimizing impact to the existing retaining walls, building faces, and mature trees that exist along the roadway corridor. Next slide, please.
In the upcoming consultation events, the project team will be gathering input from members of the public on the following questions to better understand and confirm their vision for downtown revitalization. Their input, as Paul just mentioned, will be considered throughout the design process and throughout other aspects of the project as well. And we thought we'd leave you with these questions. What are the top 3 favorite things about your downtown? What can we do within the downtown revitalization project to make Mount Albert more appealing and accessible? What downtown improvements would be important to you? What new businesses, services, events, or facilities would you like to see in downtown Mount Albert? And finally, when you think about the term or the phrase downtown revitalization, what does it mean to you? Thank you.
Thank you. That was quite the presentation. Really makes you think about where we could be in another year in Mount Albert, for sure. I want to thank Paul Turner and Jillian Thompson in particular with your creative ideas. I know there'll be a lot of discussion about it, and just want to thank you. With that, I have a resolution. Be it resolved that community infrastructure, perhaps before I go there, are there questions from anyone as well?
Madam Mayor, I have a comment I could provide.
Thank you. Go ahead, please.
I think that tonight we've raised the bar on downtown revitalization, and we also have the Hall Landing project coming along as well. They should be dealt with concurrently, and I think that they would be ideal candidates for future council workshops and special nights where we have open houses and such. I don't think it would be fair. I think that the seed's been planted, and I think it's time to sort of review and digest. And if council does so agree, maybe we could suggest that workshops and open houses be held as part of the move forward strategy over the coming months and years.
Thank you, Mr. Webster. I agree. I think we'll have a community that are very excited about being involved with the whole revitalization. Are there any other questions, comments? Councillor Foster and then Councillor Crone. Thank you.
Thank you, Madam Mayor. I just wanted to bring to light, June the 15th, I believe, is also a park opening for us. I'm just wondering how that schedule conflicts for council and senior staff. I believe that may be the Queensville park opening.
Mr. Webster, do you have that information?
Madam Mayor, things are moving quickly, and if there's any conflict, let me assure you, it'll be straightened out immediately, that we don't have councillors in different parts of the community on the same evening. And there's lots of nights for public consultation. We don't have to rush things, and I appreciate Councillor Foster for bringing that to attention.
And I do believe when it comes to projects like this, that council members will have their running shoes on. They'll be able to get from one place to another fairly quickly when we're talking about these exciting projects. Are there any other questions, comments at this time? Councillor Crone, go ahead, please.
Thank you, Madam Mayor, and thank you to our presenters for this. This is exciting. I'm glad to see this underway. I think I can. I think Councillor Morton shares my excitement that we get this going. I am curious. You know, we started the studies and the reports back in 2006, and when you look at the timelines, by the time we finish, it'll be 20 years when this is completed from when we started. So we've had a lot of time to do studies, research. I was just curious, how much of the initial reports that you've seen, and I would ask our consultants this, how much of the initial reports and studies that we've seen can you build upon, and how, you know, is there any data in it that's now stale dated? It's no longer relevant. I was just curious how useful our previous studies and reports are.
Yeah, I can take a first swing at that. I would say we've definitely looked through the documents. I think there is a lot of good material there. Like I alluded to earlier in the presentation, there was a good foundation that we looked to build upon. There was a lot of really good ideas in terms of setting themes for each specific individual community. So For instance, Mount Albert had things like the light fixtures and benches and even some of the color patterns. So that kind of stuff, as we get into more into the details of actually the streetscaping, landscaping features, we definitely have a palette from which to draw from. So I think there is a lot of good things there. Obviously, as things change, even things that accessibility has come a long way, those will have to be factored into the design to make sure it's brought up to today's standards. But the short of it is, yes, I think there's a lot of good material, and we're definitely not starting from square one here.
Thank you for that. Madam Mayor, through you to our consultants, if I may ask a few more questions. How do we, we've been talking to residents for a number of years now. Do we run the risk of having, I'll call it diminishing returns by going to, our residents and keep asking for feedback? Have you noticed a decline? Maybe it's too early, but do we run the risk of of over consulting and then not being able to deliver in a timely manner? And so has that put us in a position where we're just not getting the feedback that we should, or are you seeing initially a good response from the residents?
I can take that question through Madam Mayor. We're just launching our round one of engagement, so we haven't yet gone out to the public, and we'll be launching that online survey at the end of this week, and the notice will be going out. So we are looking forward to gauging the level of response. But some time has passed since the downtown strategy, and as Paul said, we'll be taking a lot of that information and going out to reconfirm, recheck, and many of the themes are likely still valid today, and as Paul said, some things have evolved. I think people will be ready to re-engage on this, and we think we will get good response. But we'll see what the first round brings. We can adjust our tactics as needed. If we're not getting the response that we want or we anticipate, we'll look for different ways to get out even deeper into the community to really engage people.
Thank you, Madam Mayor, through you. I appreciate that. I think we need to make every effort we can, to let the public know that this time we're serious, that we're acting on it, and things are coming. So I guess my last question is, and I'm sorry, I can't remember what slide it was on, but it was about infill strategy. Help me understand, how would you describe that to the layperson of what that would look like?
Through you, Madam Mayor, I'm happy to tackle that question because it relates directly to the economic development component of the project. Infill is when you have vacant storefronts or vacant buildings within the community, or space that is underutilized, seeking opportunities to find the right occupant, the right business to add to the ideal business mix for the downtown. And part of the consultations that have taken place on that from the economic development perspective have looked at which businesses are seeking to grow, which businesses might perhaps consider aligning to share space, and just trying to find sort of the maximum use of the available space, but making sure also that there are no vacant storefronts as we progress through this project.
Thank you, Madam Mayor. Thank you, Ms. Bejan. I appreciate that. And I guess my last comment's not a question, but a comment that when we undertake the construction part of this, is that we exercise every effort to minimize the disruption to our businesses downtown. I think we've seen in other communities where there's been improvements to roads and streets, and it just creates havoc for the businesses there. And what we've just come through and are still coming through with COVID, I would hate to kneecap any of our businesses by being overly disruptive, but I'm sure you'll take care of that. Thank you, Madam Mayor. That is it for me. Thank you.
Thank you very much. Councillor Roy DeClemente, go ahead, please.
Thank you, Madam Mayor. Through you to staff and Mr. Turner and Ms. Thompson. I think what I'll do is I'll I'll take a little bit of a page from Councillor Crone's book and refer back to that 2014 study and the work that was done. Mainly because myself and you yourself and Councillor Morton were people sitting in the room and at the PIC boards and helping to engage in that process. And so hearing this feels a bit like deja vu for me, quite honestly. And I think it will be important for the project team to explain very clearly to those people who are coming out to engage with this process what we did in 2014, what was valid, what we're building on. That has to be a foundational document for this process rather than, well, we did this in 2014 and then we didn't do anything. That's not the case. And so it needs to be very clearly explained to folks. I get that there was minimal guidance in that 2014 document about the cross-section of Centre Street and how that should look. And so we do need to engage in that process. The accessibility issues, the AODA was passed in 2005, so that shouldn't be anything new for us. But if we didn't address it in 2014, we need to address it now. But I think when we are going out to the public, a lot of these people, a lot of these stakeholders are still the same stakeholders. And so there's going to be an element of frustration unless we can very clearly communicate what was valid about the 2014, what's new now, and what we're looking to do, and reassure people that it's not just a study with a pretty pictures that's going to go on a shelf, but that we're actually going to design and implement and build this, and that it has to be really clear for folks. Thank you.
I agree. Councillor Roy DiClemente, I think when we're out talking to the public and the individuals, residents, I think it's important to put some dates and times on it right up front. I want them to be realistic, but to make sure that people understand that it's not here we go again, but in fact, we have dates and times, and these are our dates that we propose to get to a certain level, then move to the next level, et cetera, and almost a checkbox to indicate that we're moving forward and that we're going to have something pretty darn special in Mount Albert when we're finished with it. Any other questions or comments? I'm not seeing any at this. Mr. Webster.
Madam Mayor, there was a game changer in between the first set of consultations, and I agree that the participants and the stakeholders are going to remain the same. But during this term of council, we got a tremendous grant that I think was unprecedented, and I think was close to $3 million. Correct me if I'm wrong, Mr. Treasurer or Deputy Valchich. And I think that the scope of the consultations, that it gives a basis to go back to the folks and to start re-engaging on maybe even bigger visions for the redo than that were originally. And I think all of the original consultations can certainly can add value to this, but I think there is a valid reason for some checking back with the folks to make sure we're doing the right things and that we're spending these dollars that are being leveraged with federal and provincial funding in the proper way.
Thank you. Are there any other questions or comments at this time? I'm sure there'll be more to come, but we'll stay tuned. In the meantime, I have a resolution, be it resolved that the Community Infrastructure and Environmental Services Report, CIES 2022-16, dated May 17th, 2022, entitled Mount Albert Downtown Revitalization Public Consultation Engagement and Communication Strategy, be received, and that Council endorse in principle the proposed public consultation engagement and communications strategy contained in Community Infrastructure and Environmental Services Report CIES 2022-16. That's moved by Councillor Morton, seconded by Councillor Crone. Are there any questions? All those in favor? And that's carried. Thank you very much. I will move along now to our next report, and this is Community Infrastructure and Environmental Services Report CIES 2022-14 and Presentation Direct Purchase Award for RFP P22 17 Yonge Street Revitalization Detailed Design. Staff will go ahead, please.
Thank you, Madam Mayor. Again, it is my privilege to introduce our Manager of Development Engineering, Kevin Brake, who will be leading us through a short presentation on the Holland Landing Yonge Street Revitalization Project update.
Thank you, Paul. Good evening, Madam Mayor, members of council, and the public. Happy to be here this evening to provide a project update in support of the direct purchase award report before council this evening. Next slide, please. Thank you. So this project seeks to enhance the downtown core of Holland Landing through a series of improvements with respect to streetscape and infrastructure enhancements. As noted, key components include advancing a multi-use path from the existing Nokita trailhead at Yonge Street and Mount Albert Road, north along Yonge Street along the west side to Doane Road. There's also associated streetscape and planting enhancements, as well as coordinated infrastructure improvements, including road resurfacing, water main replacement, intersection improvements, and also accessibility considerations with respect to AODA compliance, as well as trail connectivity with respect to connecting to existing sidewalks, and also improved access to local businesses. As you can see on the slide here, the project extents are delineated in green. Next slide, please. Okay, so what have we done? I guess since we were last in contact, we have established a multidisciplinary team to develop a project charter. This charter has served as a guiding document for the visioning exercise, which was commenced in late 2021. We enlisted the services of Cosburn Giverson Landscape Architects, who have a robust history working with the town as one of our preferred landscape architects within our CPRC branch. And we've also worked with them to develop 2 concept plans for public input, and a public information center was held in this regard this past fall. Comments will be reviewed later in the presentation. Also, initial stakeholder meetings have occurred with respect to opportunities and constraints. And one constraint that we'll get into later again, it is with respect to existing utility lines and overhead hydro that is not feasible to remove. Further, we've submitted a grant application to the Infrastructure Canada Active Transportation Fund for future construction works, and we are anxiously awaiting a decision in that regard. In other news, we were successful in securing federal and provincial funding for water main replacement under the Investing in Canada Infrastructure Program, Green Infrastructure Funding Stream, in the amount of $3.67 million, which will support replacement of the water main, thin wall PVC water main on Yonge Street, as well as other locations within the town in the community of Sharon. Next slide, please. Okay, so with respect to scope of works and project phasing, in-scope works, as noted, include road improvements, sidewalk and trail connectivity. With respect to road improvements, I will note these works are being coordinated with York Region, as Yonge Street is a regional corridor. Construction of multi-use trail along with associated streetscape enhancements, water main replacement, and as previously noted by Margot Begine, commercial gap analysis is underway, and results of this analysis will inform the Yonge Street Revitalization project. As noted previously, the not in scope works include relocation of high voltage hydro lines. Through consultation with Hydro One, relocating or building of these lines is extremely cost prohibitive and not within the scope of this project. Regarding project phasing and pending council approval of the detailed design award, detailed design along with associated works is anticipated to commence within the next month. Detailed design process, including 30, 60, 90% detailed design submissions and associated public consultation, are anticipated to commence later this year and continue into 2023. Final detailed design and tender-ready package for future construction is anticipated to be complete in 2023, and future tenders and associated construction works are subject to future council approval. There may be an opportunity to commence advanced utility works in 2023. However, the bulk of construction is anticipated to commence in 2024, again, subject to future budget approval. Next slide, please. So as previously noted, 2 concept plans were developed for public consideration. This slide just provides a quick overview of key differences with respect to the 2 options developed. Option 1 was dubbed Connected in Green and consisted of a more of a meandering alignment of the multi-use path along the west side of Yonge Street with a varying of widths, whereas option 2 consisted of a more direct and continuous route. Option 1, again, proposed no changes to existing sidewalks on the east side of Yonge, whereas option 2 has considered an additional sidewalk on the east side. Option 1 was more of a traditional design, whereas option 2 was more modern, but still respecting the industrial history of the area and historical significance of the community. And other key differences with respect to intersection enhancements. Option 1 was more of an enhanced intersection street print within the field of the intersection, and option 2 consisted more, or focused more, I guess, on a more subtle street print approach at intersection crossings only. Next slide, please. So the next couple slides, again, just highlight the two concepts that were developed for public consideration. As you can see, maybe not the greatest at this scale, however, you can kind of see in red delineated across the screen along the west side, the multi-use path. And in the intersections, you can see that filled in central intersection area. That's kind of an enhancement there. Next slide, please. And again, just a quick overview of option 2 that was presented previously. Again, more consistent alignment along that west side, and again, highlights include, I guess, the more simpler approach to intersection improvements. Of note too, again, both options included that were presented included, streetscape envisioning type images to garner or kickstart conversation. And so, as we move to detailed design, that those conversations will continue and look to be refined in more detail. Next slide, please. Thank you. So again, a quick summary here of the PIC comments received. PIC was generally well attended. Approximately 40 residents were in attendance. A variety of comments were received, most of which were generally positive. There were some concerns noted, and just quickly going through some of the comments received here. Again, the side of the street that the MUP is located on and impacts to heritage homes, parking constraints, and snow storage were noted. Impacts of construction, obviously, which we would like to minimize as much as possible. Issues with respect to visibility, backing out of driveways, seating areas, promoting loitering, those kinds of things. Aging infrastructure was noted, specifically water main by some residents, and as noted, we will be looking to complete the replacement of thin wall PVC water main in the area. And again, location of existing hydro poles, which again have spoken about. Also, in other comments, there was excitement around the project, excitement to hear about the enhancements and to see what was possible. There was a preference noted for traditional design. Again, welcome changes, but keeping the small town feel of Holland Landing. Trail connectivity was welcomed as well, and also comments with respect to recognition of Indigenous people that had come before the area, ensuring that there's recognition in that regard, and other comments with respect to welcome enhanced plantings and green space. With respect to the side of the street, in conversation with York Region and the location of the MUP, the west side has been identified as a preferred route. With respect to the extension of the Lake to Lake Trail, north of Doan Road, as well as connectivity to the recently completed Doan Road pedestrian bridge. I'd also like to note that all items referred to here will be reviewed in detail throughout the detailed design process, and impacted residents will be contacted directly as required. We also note, and as previously mentioned, there will be multiple public information centers. Three are proposed at each design milestone, the 30, 60, and 90% design submissions for public input. Next slide, please. Oh, actually, excuse me. Just go back one slide there, sorry. Forgot to note again, with respect to the PIC comments received, there was equal support, it seemed, for options 1 and 2. And so we're looking to blend those two and brand it as green and active, as noted there at the bottom of the slide. Thank you. Next slide, please. Thanks. So with respect to next steps, we're looking to award the detailed design project and commence detailed design based on comments received to date. On-site investigation works, including surveying and subsurface utility investigations, are to commence this summer. Scheduled stakeholder engagement meetings and subsequent PICs for additional public input opportunities. And we're targeting a completion of detailed design in 2023. We'll be looking to develop detailed cost estimates and project phasing plan for proposed works for future budget consideration. That's through the detailed design process. Next slide, please. So for additional information, residents are welcome to contact myself. I've also noted Max Lazo of Cosburn Giverson Landscape Architects contact information, and further, the town's website does have a project page with up-to-date information with respect to additional information about the project. So in closing, the report before council this evening, let's go ahead. The report before council this evening seeks to direct award the Yonge Street Revitalization detailed design to Cosburn Giverson Landscape Architects in the amount of $510,500. Staff have reviewed the proposal and find it to be fair and reasonable. Having developed the concept design, Cosburn Giverson is already immersed in the project, making the transition to detailed design seamless and efficient. As previously noted, they are one of the town's pre-qualified landscape architects and have provided professional services related to streetscape and public realm to the town of East Gwillimbury since 2007.
Councillor Persichini, did you have a question?
Yes, I do. I'm just curious to know how you're going to redirect traffic when this is all going to start, because it's very narrow there. How are you going to manage the traffic going up and down that Yonge Street? You know.
Yep. So a detailed construction management plan will be developed through the detailed design process, and that will be again coordinated with York Region and determined through the detailed design, and ultimately through even future construction tenders.
Well, my question was, are they going to close the street? I know you're going to say they're going to work on it. Are they going to divert to go back on the next street over to direct the traffic? I'm just trying to get an idea, because I use that area a lot because I live just off Beckett there, and not that it matters for me, but the rest of the public will feel the same impact. Just curious.
Yeah. At this point, Councilor Persichini, specifics with respect to road closures haven't been determined. However, again, as we work through the details of constructability and whatnot through the detailed design process, I don't know that a full closure would be supported, frankly, but again, we can explore those options as we work through the project.
Are there other questions? Councillor Foster, go ahead, please.
Thank you, Madam Mayor. If I might, a comment and a question. I noticed that the project is creeping a little bit south of Mount Albert Road as we go. And we do have another project and some town-owned land south of there. I'm not suggesting that these projects be put together, but I'm just wondering if there might be an opportunity for some blending, that one will fit in with the other, and we can take that into consideration. In the form of a question, though, I was wondering more about the high voltage lines, and I understand the expense that it would take to move those, and that, like I say, that's quite understood. Is there any opportunity to get Hydro One back to the table to see if there might be some, I guess, some next best steps to make that area look better? We talked about it briefly before. I think it was Denny that spoke about it. You know, different poles, however it could be to make those look better. Is there any opportunity of that?
Through you, Madam Mayor, absolutely, Councillor Foster, and we have had conversations even with respect to the east side of Yonge Street, where there's some pole drops and service poles that could potentially be removed and or replaced, and we're looking at upgrading and enhancing streetlight and banner poles through that corridor on the east side, as well as, and you know, again, we can explore potentially upgraded poles with Hydro and definitely have those conversations. I just, again, there was some inquiry or comment about burying those lines and that kind of thing. It's just wanted to be clear that that's not feasible. However, yes, we're endeavoring to basically improve the look and feel of the corridor for sure.
Thank you.
You're welcome.
Councillor Crothers, go ahead, please.
Thank you. We're having a beautiful sunset here in Holland Landing, so I apologize for my audio being a little washed out. I want to thank you, Mr. Brake, for this. The residents are so excited, and the open house was so well attended and started such a buzz in town. So I really appreciate seeing this report tonight. And it's also wonderful to see it coming at the same night as we're talking about Mount Albert revitalization, and we know we have the civic precinct and the help coming along. So every aspect of our town is getting something that's going to be very exciting over the coming years. My question was just a quick question. In your presentation, you mentioned the industrial history, and I don't really see industrial history on Yonge Street, and I was just wondering what that was referring to.
Yeah, I believe, and again, through discussions and through the process, I guess, of this project, there's been discussion with respect to the lock system, for example, and trading and that kind of thing in the area. And so that kind of paying homage to that and respect to that, along with the, the traditional history of the area. So that's where that came from, I believe.
Okay, industrial just put a different picture in my mind, and I was wondering if it was supposed to be indigenous history, but I see it was a lock, so that makes a lot of sense. Anyways, I absolutely love this all. I'm glad that we decided on a combination of both designs, because there was valid points on either side. So excited to get this going, and hopefully it gets moving quickly. Thank you.
You're welcome. Thank you.
Other questions, comments? Councillor Roy DeClemente, go ahead, please.
Thank you, Madam Mayor. I just wanted to confirm, I guess confirm is the best word for it. We haven't necessarily settled on a 100% design option at this point, because the presentation does reflect some comments that were heard from the public, and if we've got a proposed solution or a preferred option, I think it would be important that we go back to the public to make sure that we got it right before we invest in a detailed design. And I just want to make sure that we're not skipping that step in this process. Through you, Madam Mayor.
Thank you. Mr. Brake?
Yep, through you, Madam Mayor, again, so our vision with respect to that comment is we're looking at the 30% stage to come back to the public with a public information center. And again, to review incorporated comments, as well as at that 30% stage on this, green and active concept. That being said, we are also looking to bring forward a bit more of a refined concept at the public open house later this month, just next week, for consultation as well. But specific consultation, in the community is anticipated at the 30% stage with the public.
Thank you. Any other questions, comments? I just have one, Mr. Brake. And I should have asked it at the last one as well. They're both very similar in some respects. Are there height restrictions on new buildings that are going to be within this redevelopment area?
That's a great question. Maybe more appropriate from a zoning perspective. I'm not sure 100% personally. There may be, I would say from a zoning perspective, yes, but I may defer to General Manager Cook potentially to answer that question.
Well, I can leave it for tonight, but I just don't want it lost. And I think in both cases, these are historic downtown areas, both of them. And while there are some buildings that have disappeared already there are some empty lots in both cases where there may in fact be someone who wants to come in and build something new and make it look a little older with the architecture. And I'm just wondering if sooner than later do we take a look at what the height restrictions will be, rather than somebody coming in with a terrific project and finding out that it just doesn't fit with the heritage of these two beautiful streets.
Yeah, I think from a streetscape and public realm and even architectural control guideline perspective, that could be evaluated, and definitely we can circle back on that for sure.
Thank you. Just put it on the list.
Will do. Thank you.
Thank you. Any other questions or comments? I have a motion, be it received, that Community Infrastructure and Environmental Services Presentation and Report CIES 2022-14 dated May 17th, 2022, entitled Direct Purchase Award for RFP P2217 Yonge Street Revitalization Detailed Design be received, and that Council direct Purchase Award Detailed Design RFP number P2217 to Cosburn Gybertson Landscape Architects in the amount of $510,500 plus applicable taxes, and that the General Manager of Community Infrastructure and Environmental Service be authorized to execute the necessary agreement and any associated documents in a form satisfactory to the town solicitor and the manager procurement, and that would be moved by Councillor Foster and Councillor Crothers. Are there any questions on that one? All those in favor? And that's carried. Thank you very much, staff, and also our guests tonight. Very exciting projects. I know that every member of a council will have some little questions and some ideas as they travel around this summer and see some of the communities that have taken on a redevelopment in the downtown areas. Perhaps we will have some new and innovative ideas ourselves. I'm not seeing anything else under Community Infrastructure and Environmental Services. Is that correct?
Madam Mayor, I would just like to bring to the attention of Council of the successful installation of the Pride Crosswalk last weekend at the Civic Center. So I'd just like to point that out. Thank you very much.
Thank you very much, Mr. Newman. I think that most people saw it, but thank you very much. It was very, very timely, moved very quickly. Thank you. And with that, I will move to item K, and that's Development Services with General Manager Cook. I believe there you are.
Yes, thank you, Madam Mayor. First item from Development Services will be a year-end summary report as required by the Building Code Act. The building reserve has a healthy balance, and the building branch will be able to continue to operate for the next 3 to 5 years. We've got our chief building official here to help answer any questions.
Thank you very much. Questions? I'm not seeing any. With that, could I have a motion to receive? Councillor Foster, Councillor Crone, all those in favor? And that's carried. Item number 2 is Development Services Building Branch Memo, CityView Software Improvements and Launch of Portal.
Thank you, Madam Mayor. This next memo is to advise Council that on May 30th, 2022, Building Branch will be setting up to accept building permits applications online. The memo provides a list of service deliveries, and training for staff from various departments are scheduled for the next 2 weeks. Once again, Chief of Building Official is here to answer any questions related to this.
Thank you. Questions? Councillor Crone, go ahead, please.
Thank you, Madam Mayor. I think this is a good thing that we're doing if we can make it a little easier for our residents or prospective residents to get permits, and I think it speaks to the overall culture change that we're trying to bring in with better customer service and the like. So I support this. I would just maybe suggest, Mr. Cook, that perhaps we as council, it'd be neat to see a demo of this at some point down the road, and I hope we can do some instructional videos for people if it is not too complicated, to an instructional video to help people do it online. I know. Anyway, that's it for me. Thank you.
Thank you. Councillor Roy DeClemente, go ahead, please.
I apologize for distracting you, Councillor Crone. I was just imagining you doing a TikTok submitting your permit application for a renovation on your home. So, but I just wanted to congratulate staff on this initiative. This is something that we've been asking for quite some time, and our residents have been asking for. So I'm delighted to see it moving forward, and I do think it would be helpful if we had if we had a demonstration perhaps at a future workshop, and I'll nominate Councillor Crone to do the TikToks for it. Thank you.
I'll see your TikTok.
Councillor Foster, go ahead.
I have a family member getting ready to apply for some permits, and Councillor Crone's got me scared now. I think we'll just bring them over.
Very good. Any other questions or comments? Would I have a mover and a seconder, please? Councillor Roy DiClemente, Councillor Foster, all those in favor? And that's carried. Item number 3, Development Services Planning Branch Report, 2022-15, Town Initiated Zoning Bylaw Amendment, Cannabis Production Facilities.
Yes, thank you, Madam Mayor. This next item is a report from the Planning Branch, which seeks Council's approval to update the town zoning bylaw regulations with regards to the cannabis production facilities. The statutory public meeting was held at the April 20th council meeting, and we've heard from members of the public and council on this matter that evening. And we're happy to report back to council here that staff has met with the concerning residents and from the public meeting and addressed all concerns raised from that. And just to help summarize, staff is proposing to permit cannabis production facilities in the general employment zoning area with criteria listed in the staff report. Happy to answer any questions here.
Thank you very much. Questions from members of council? I'm not seeing any. Oh, Councillor Crone, go ahead.
Thank you, Madam Mayor. It wouldn't be right if there was something on the agenda about cannabis that I didn't speak to it. So, through you, Madam Mayor, to Mr. Cook and all of the staff, thank you very much for your hard work on this. This has been a big challenge for us for the last 2 years with everything, and I think this does a really nice job of saying to the world that we are not opposed to cannabis production facilities, but if you want to do so, you have to do so through the municipal process and legally. And we have made accommodations for those who have medical needs for medical cannabis. So I think you've done a nice job of balancing everyone's needs and making sure that everything is done lawfully. So thank you very much for your efforts on this. I know it's a team effort, but it is appreciated, and I know the residents appreciate it as well. Thank you, Madam Mayor.
Very much so. Will you move that, Councillor Crone? Thank you. Councillor Morton? All those in favor? And that's carried. Item number 4 is Development Services Planning Branch P 2022-14, extension of approved draft plan of subdivision, Queensville Properties Phase 4, Queensville Properties Phase 5. Mr. Cook, go ahead, please.
Thank you, Madam Mayor. Yes, this item is to request council to extend the draft plan approval for a period of 1 year. This will allow the developer additional time to ensure that they'll be able to register Phase 4 and 5, which are scheduled to expire on June 10th for Phase 4 and December for Phase 5. I'm happy to answer any questions here as well.
Questions from members of council? Councillor Roy DiClemente, go ahead, please.
Thank you. I don't have a question specifically to this circumstance. I'm fine with the extension for 1 year, but I did want to make a comment that I made this comment previously, but I want to reiterate it, that when we are making these approvals, that we do have, I guess, a use it or lose it kind of approach to this, so that there is an expiry date and that you do not get the ability to develop, or that you get to keep reserves of allocation in standby while you're not processing or not proceeding with your application. So I'm not saying that this is the circumstance here, but I know we've had some high-level discussions about this during our official plan process, and I want to make sure that we continue to move towards that so that we don't end up with stale dated site plans and subdivisions. Thank you.
Thank you. Thank you. Councillor Persicini, will you second that? Be it resolved that Development Services Report P 2022-14 dated May 17, 2022, entitled Extension of Approved Draft Plan of Subdivision, Queensville Properties Phase 4, Queensville Properties Phase 5 be received, and that Council grant an extension of draft approval together with the related conditions of draft approval for a period of 1 year to the following plans of subdivision in the community of Queensville. A 19T14003 Queensville Properties Phase 4, B 19T17001 Queensville Properties 5. All those in favor? And that's carried. Thank you very much. We're on item number 5. Go ahead, please.
Yes, thank you, Madam Mayor. This next item is about a part lot control application located on the landing. The proposed part lot control will create an additional 8 semi-detached and 8 townhouses to the northwest corner of Thompson Drive and Silk Twist Road, Silk Twist Drive. Happy to answer any questions here.
Thank you very much. Questions? I'm not seeing any at this time. Be it resolved that Development Services Planning Branch Memorandum dated May 17th, 2022, entitled Part Lot Control Exemption Bylaw Andren Anchor Woods Limited Valley Brook be received. Councillor Crothers, will you move that, please? You will not. Was that a no?
If someone else could move it, I'd appreciate that. Thanks.
Councillor Persichini, Councillor Crone, all those in favor? That's carried. Are there any other items at this point, Mr. Cook?
No further items at this time. Thank you.
Thank you. Any questions, Mr. Cook, that haven't been answered this evening yet? I'm not seeing any. We'll move along to Finance with General Manager Marshall.
Thank you, Madam Mayor and members of Council. Just briefly, last meeting, Council approved the establishment of a reserve to address climate change within the town. This memo is here just to advise Council that the bylaw that's required to establish that reserve is on Council's agenda for this evening to be approved. So I'm happy to answer any questions.
Thank you very much, Mr. Marshall. Questions? I'm not seeing any. Could I have a mover and a seconder, please? Councillor Morton, Councillor Foster, all those in favor? And that's carried. Mr. Marshall, do you have anything else for us this evening?
Nothing at this time.
Thank you very much. I'll move to item M, and that's Corporate Services with Deputy CAO Velchik. I am not seeing anything under Corporate Services. Is that correct?
Madam Mayor, with your permission, we do have one a short verbal update from our Director of Corporate Communications, Ms. Gandhi.
Please go ahead.
Through you, Madam Mayor, we have been working towards putting together a template council newsletter. This is something I believe actually was started long before I started with the municipality. The thought of having a template for members of council they could use. And we have now been working towards finalizing that. We simplified the template, so it was a little bit more complex before, but now it's quite user-friendly, and all the content is now in our new SharePoint system. So it's simply a link to the templates and then a folder with photos that members of council may use. So I wanted to provide that verbal update, and I will be sending an email to all members of council tomorrow. I'm happy to take any questions.
Thank you very much. Questions? Councillor Roy DiClemente, go ahead, please.
Thank you, Madam Mayor. Perhaps this is either a question for Ms. Gandhi or to Ms. Lajavardi about communications during the nomination period. I believe that we have a policy that we adopted at our last meeting that speaks that we should not be, if we are filing nomination papers, we should not be sending out such sorts of correspondence. Is that not correct?
Through Madam Mayor. Oh, sorry. Go right ahead, Mita.
I was actually going to suggest that the clerk answer that, respond to that.
Perfect. Perfect. Great minds.
Sure. Through you, Madam Mayor, that's correct. Restrictions for members of council during an election period, which starts May 2nd all the way through to October 24th, does impose restrictions on newsletters or other ward-related communication unless specifically authorized by council. So there is a restriction for that particular period of time. At this time, we haven't established any newsletters, but the template has been refined for council members should they wish to choose to communicate additional information. but it's up to the discretion of council members to make that decision.
Okay, so at this point, it is not permitted at this point, as of May 2nd.
Through you, Madam Mayor, the policy that we have crafted specifically applies the restrictions for the newsletter from nomination day, which would be in essence August 19th at 2 p.m. So from that date onwards until October 24th, the newsletter restriction will apply. Alternatively, there are other restrictions that apply from nomination period that commenced on May 2nd. And
Okay.
I will refer to section 4.7 of the corporate resources policy for anyone that wishes to further review that section.
That was the policy that I was referring to, that I was hesitant to start implementing a new newsletter at this point in our term, and certainly would be welcoming of a resource for new members of council after the election. That would be a great way for them to introduce themselves to their constituents. But I welcome the resources, but I'm hesitant to take advantage of them at this time. Thank you.
Other questions, comments? Councillor Crothers, go ahead.
Thank you. This is something that I've been working on since 2019, and it got put on hold because of COVID. And for the last number of months, we've been working towards this. And I did check with the clerk before embarking on the newsletter, and was told we had until August 19th. When I first reached out to communications, I said I wanted to get it done before the May 2nd deadline, but that wasn't possible with everything they have on their plate, and it's fully understandable. And so the newsletter for Ward 1, Terry and I have already agreed on all the content, and it's all written up, ready to go, based on the advice that we had from the clerk that we had until August 19th to send it out. So if something has changed since then, there's been a lot of work that's been put into this newsletter already, and by Ms. Gandhi and her staff as well, getting the template ready for us. So I'd like to know what we have to do, because it's ready to go at this point. So do we need a motion from council, or what needs to happen now? Because this is news to me, if we need a motion from council, when I was told we had until August 19th.
Go ahead, please.
Through you, Madam Mayor, the policy under, and I can maybe rephrase that, so it's under section 472 of the policy. The town will discontinue the following services between nomination day, which is August 19th at 2 p.m., all the way through to voting day for members of council who are candidates in the municipal election. Newsletters or word communication unless specifically authorized by council. To that effect, nomination day being August 19th would allow individuals to still release newsletters. However, be cognizant of the fact that once a councillor becomes a candidate, there would be some perceived notions of perhaps campaigning within that particular newsletter. So it's just being mindful of what information is being shared. Typically, the advice has always been to maintain what is factual information and available on our public website, so that, that can be reiterated to members of the public. Hopefully that provides a little bit of clarity, but the policy does permit individuals to release information up to August 19 at 2 p.m.
Wonderful. That's great. And I have checked the various sections of the newsletter with staff that are responsible for that department to make sure what we're saying is accurate. But if you would like, I can send it to you first before we send it out, to make sure that it doesn't come across as campaigning at all, because that's not our intention. We just kind of want to do a year in review. And we were hoping to get it out earlier, but like I said, there was a lot of moving parts.
Questions, comments? Mr. CAO, go ahead, please.
Madam Mayor, I'll just make an observation. This is our first term with council to have wards, which is a little different than at large. And I think it's pretty clear August 19th is the date. And up till that point in time, council can use their discretion on informing residents. You're elected for a 4-year term, not a 3.5-year term. And we're here to serve you as the elected accountable representatives for that full 4-year term. So I don't think there's any special council resolution or need to circulate a ward communication. I will assure you, though, that we are going to provide in July a council full 4-year term report card, as we do each and every term of council. And it'll look back to the strategic plan. It'll look back to the corporate objectives that this council established. and we will report on all of the elements. And hopefully there's a lot of successes that we can report on. And that is something we will continue to do. But I think as far as this goes, I think it's pretty clear that a communication from a ward councillor through a newsletter is up to their own discretion up until August 19th. Thank you.
Thank you very much. Questions, comments? Okay, I don't think we have a motion for that one. We've just covered it. Deputy CAO Valchik, there wasn't anything else that you had for us at this time?
Nothing further. Thank you very much, Madam Mayor.
Thank you. I'll move to item N, and that's Community Parks, Recreation, and Culture with General Manager Karmazin.
Good evening, through you, Madam Mayor. No prepared agenda items this evening, and no further updates at this time.
Thank you. Any questions, comments from members of council? I'm not seeing any. We will move along to item O, and that's Emergency and Community Safety Services. Chief McKenzie, I think I saw you earlier there.
Thank you, Your Honor. Nothing on the agenda, but happy to take any questions.
Thank you very much. Any questions of the chief? I'm not seeing any at this time. I will move to Legal Services with our General Manager Sinclair.
Thank you, Madam Mayor. There's nothing to report this evening.
Thank you very much. Any questions of Mr. Sinclair? Seeing none, I will move along to correspondence, and we have a couple of items in correspondence. The first one is correspondence from the Sharon West Landowners Group dated April 29th, 2022 regarding servicing allocation to complete the Sharon Community Village. And we have a staff member who's going to speak on this.
Madam Mayor, I think that this is best referred to staff. What we have now is, as our initial communities are being built, there's unbuilt streets and that are fully serviced, lights are in, and quite frankly, they're a little bit of a blight on the community for the rest of the residents living in. And so we've asked all of the communities to come forward. So far, we've had submissions from Sharon West and from the Hull Landing Group. And we will be working with these groups to bring back a full report to council in the near future.
Thank you. Could I have a mover and seconder and that the correspondence be referred back to staff? Councillor Morton, Councillor Crone, all those in favor? And that's carried. Second item we have is from Jay Heffley, dated May 10th, 2022, regarding a sign denoting Union Street Women's Institute on Bogue Road. I remember it, and I don't know how it disappeared, but it's not there right now, that's for sure. They are still meeting. It's hard to believe. When I first got connected with Women's Institute, I think there were 7 organizations in York Region, and now they're the only one that remain. So any help I feel that we can give them, then we should be helping them out. Councillor Roy DiClemente first, then Councillor Crone.
Thank you, Madam Mayor. I believe the sign was installed when we had the anniversary of the building, and I forget which year that was, but we did have it installed, and the resolution before us is that we receive and that we refer it to staff. And I might add that we refer it to staff with a request that that signage be installed.
Thank you. Any questions? Councillor Crone, go ahead.
Yeah, thank you, Madam Mayor, and as the council liaison to the North Union Hall, I was asked about this as well, and so I would second the amendment that Councillor Roy DiClemente has made. I think it would be very important that we could do this. You know, service organizations all around the countryside are struggling to keep membership up, and anything we can do to help them advertise them, I think is a good thing. So happy to give a little clearer direction to staff.
Thank you. Thank you. Any other questions? All those in favor? And that's carried. I'm finished with the resolutions. Item R, reports, and we have none at this time. Item S is resolutions, none at this time. We have 4. Sorry? We have 4 bylaws in front of us. Could I have a mover and a seconder? Councillor Roy DiClemente?
Just wondering if we could vote on them separately, please.
Certainly we can. Let me just go roll up my... the first bylaw we have is bylaw 2022-043, being a bylaw to amend bylaw number 2019-058, specifically Schedule A, to appoint building officials for corporation of the town of East Gwillimbury. Moved by Councillor Roy DiClemente, seconded by Councillor Morton. All those in favor? And that's carried. The second one is bylaw number 2022-044, being a bylaw to establish a climate change initiatives reserve fund. And this is in relation to L1. Do I have a mover and a seconder? Councillor Foster, Councillor Persichini. All those in favor? And that's carried. Item number 3 is a bylaw, being a bylaw to exempt certain lands from the part lot control provision of the Planning Act pertaining to a portion of those lands within the Valley Brook Investment, Inc. Plan of Subdivision File 19T 919, lots 136, 137, 138, and 139, and blocks 332 and 333 on Plan 65M-4600 and Andron Anchor Woods Limited. Could I have a mover and a seconder, please? Councillor Roy DiClemente, Councillor Persichini. All those in favor? And that's carried. Number 4 is a bylaw 2022-046, being a bylaw to amend bylaw number 2018-43 as amended with respect to cannabis production facilities in the town of East Gwillimbury in the regional municipality of York, ZBA 2204, and this is in relationship to item K3.
Madam Mayor,
Yes.
I think this would be an appropriate one to have a recorded vote on, please.
Thank you. Madam Clerk, we have a recorded vote requested.
Through Madam Mayor, but just bear with me for a moment. I'm
Certainly.
just going to pull up the chart. Through Madam Mayor, Councillor Roy DiClemente has requested for a recorded vote, but prior to that, can we have a mover and a seconder on this?
Councillor Crone, Councillor Morton.
Wonderful. Councillor Roy DiClemente, how do you vote?
Yes.
Councillor Carruthers, how do you vote?
Yes.
Councillor Crone, how do you vote?
Yes.
Councillor Foster, how do you vote?
Yes.
Mayor Hackson, how do you vote?
Yes.
Councillor Morton, how do you vote?
Yes.
Councillor Persichini, how do you vote?
Yes.
Wonderful. Madam Mayor, your motion's been carried unanimously.
Thank you very much. That concludes the bylaws. Item U under other business, CAO Webster.
Madam Mayor, I'm going to address June 14th and June 15th tonight. And so June 14th, the good news is people don't mind when meetings are canceled. And for that evening, both our workshop drainage and dike system expert and our traffic folks are not available. And we're going to refer those to future workshops. With respect to June 15th, it's become the most popular night in town history. And so we're going to do a job now of trying to vet what events will happen that evening and make sure that we'll work with council schedule to make sure that they can attend these many important initiatives. And I think at this point in time, there's 4 on the 15th, and we'll make sure it's a reasonable amount and that we defer some of the events, which are all important to other evenings. Thank you.
Mr. Webster, I wonder if it's possible to split the evening as well. If one started a little earlier and one later, then individuals would be able to go to 2 in one evening. Instead of talking about 4 nights, we're talking about 2 nights.
We may be able to do that, Madam Mayor, as far as splitting, and we might be able to use June 14th as an evening as well. And so we'll, or a late afternoon. So we will do our best to reconfigure the schedule to meet not only council schedule, but most importantly, the public schedule, so they can get to these very important events.
Thank you very much.
Through you, Madam Mayor, just understanding that the workshop is going to be canceled, it would require an official motion from council for us to cancel it.
Thank you. Councillor Crone, Councillor Morton, all those in favor? And that's carried. Thank you very much. We are at item V, and that's a confirming bylaw. Could I have a mover and a seconder, please? Councillor Roy DiClemente, Councillor Foster, all those in favor? And that's carried. And we have an adjournment at 8:14. Moved by Councillor Morton, seconded by Councillor Crone. All those in favor? And that's carried. Thank you very much. Thank you, staff. Appreciate all the good work. We have tackled some large projects tonight. Thank you very much. Have a good evening.
Good night.